garden. Pick myself a flower, maybe two. Slightly slip right through the cracks, grab myself some sassafras and run back home to the blue. When I got home, well, I got high as hell. Found myself entranced in a magic spell. What was at my fingertips, I knew I best not let it slip away so easily. See, I got confused, I knew might be better, that somehow I could control the weather. Took a look at my telescope, couldn't find a single ounce of hope down this pipeline. We all start tumbling down, like a rock from the border, like one in the crowd. Scream your voice and scream it proud. Oh, I know that sound, and I know you're around, and I know that you're down. Made my way back to that garden, grabbed my favorite packet of seeds. Decided it was finally time to get on my hands and knees. So I do as the working man please.
Funny how the best things in life never seem to stay. Funny that however hard I try, it always ends the same. Funny how the sparkle in your eyes, you just washed away. I told you that the best things in life never seem to stay. But oh, don't you cry, don't you call it quits and run away this time. The night is always darkest just before the day. Oh, you'll be alright, you let it go and watch it come to life. 'Cause love only grows up tall when you let it slip away. And I've been to the ocean, and I've been up those Colorado hills, and come back down again, watching the snow fall on the fields. And I would go back if I thought that there was love to fall into. But now I know that I always find myself running back to you. It seems like there's a river running through you, I see it in your eyes. Oh, but if you keep on thinking about the past, then it's never gonna dry. Funny how you give someone your heart and you make it out alive. It's funny how it always ends the same, however hard I try. But oh, you'll be alright, you let it go and watch it come to life. 'Cause love only grows out tall when you let it slip away. Oh, I've been to the ocean, and I've been up take you where you're gonna go. Maybe someday I'll see you running back to me. Oh, don't you see that there's more to living life than running afraid? And just because I'm going doesn't mean I'm gonna leave. 'Cause I've been to Pennsylvania when the green of summer had expired. And from my window I've seen autumn set the leaves on fire. And I would go back if I thought that there was love to fall into. But now I know that I always find myself running back to you, running back to you, running back to you, running back to you.
Good morning. Welcome to Bold and Gold's first virtual orientation. My name is Robin Childs, and I am a member of the Campaign and Outdoor Leadership admin team who specializes in Bold and Gold programs and your host today. As so much of our interactions with others has been in the virtual world, I'm sure you are as excited as we are to have the opportunity to get outside and experience some of our state's most beautiful natural places. The Bold and Gold team, some of which you will hear from today, have been busy preparing for this summer and wanted to provide you with the information you need to prepare as well. As we progress through this presentation, please use the chat for your questions and we will address them during the Q&A portion. I want you to know I'm your family advocate, so if you have unanswered questions or concerns, I'm here to help. We'll post contact information at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. For 500 generations, they flourished until the newcomers came. Much was lost, much was devalued, but much was also hidden away in the hearts of the dispossessed. This is an excerpt from the Native Americans of the Pacific Northwest, an introduction by David Buridge. I would like to acknowledge that I live and work on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish peoples, and our Bold and Gold adventures will explore the lands of the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest, which are now designated as public forest lands, national and state parks. It is incumbent upon us to be mindful of this and be good stewards of the land. We will practice leave no trace principles to protect these natural spaces while we play, learn, and grow. Next slide, please. The equity statement of the YMCA of Greater Seattle is our guiding principle for everything we do at the Y, and certainly for Bold and Gold. The Y actively promotes a culture free from bias and injustice. We are dedicated to removing institutional and systemic barriers that result in oppression and racism. We will be accountable to marginalized communities for creating equitable and sustainable environments where social justice is woven into every facet of our programs, and by caring for our communities in a culturally versatile and respectful manner. Next slide. This is an overview of what we will be covering today, the mission of Bold and Gold. You'll meet key summer staff, We'll give you information for preparing for your adventure. We'll go over our risk management protocols, what to expect next, some admissions information, and then we'll have time to answer your questions. Remember to use the chat. Next slide, please. So I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he is going to give us an overview.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Esseltine. I'm the director for the Outdoor Leadership Programs, and that includes Earth Service Corps, which is an urban-based environmental education program, Climbing and Challenge, which programs our low and high ropes courses that the Y of Greater Seattle owns, and then Bold and Gold, which offers a variety of outdoor adventure programs during the school year, as well as during the summer, which is what we're here to talk about today. So all of Outdoor Leadership lives within the Camping and Outdoor Leadership branch, which also includes Camp Orkyla up on Orcas Island and Camp Coleman down on the Key Peninsula. And collectively, we've all been working together through this pandemic to provide programming for youth and families, and we're excited for what's to come here this summer. So on the call today and supporting all of this are a handful of the folks that are involved with the program for the summer. So I introduced myself. I've been here with Outdoor Leadership for 9 years now. You'll also hear from Jordan Bright, who is the director for our Bold and Gold summer programs. Catherine Jensen, who oversees Bold and Gold's program partnership programs during the school year, as well as the Leader in Training program, and Robin, and then Chris Ashburn, who is our administrative supervisor and supports all of our behind the scenes work and our check-in processes during the summer. So I'm excited for you to hear from each and every one of us, and we can move forward.
Jordan, will you?
Yes, I am so excited to talk about who our trip leaders are. Our Bold and Gold field instructors are the ones who make our incredible trips possible. And they come from all over the country and in non-COVID years, all across the world. What brings our instructors together is a desire to really get young folks outside and share what they are passionate about, which is being outdoors, either backpacking or climbing or mountaineering or paddling or all of the activities that we do. Some of our instructors are classroom teachers in the Seattle area who spend part of their summers with us taking youth outdoors. We have other instructors who come from different outdoor schools who spend their whole year taking young people outside. We have members who have experience in search and rescue, in wilderness therapy, in all of the specialized activities that we are doing to make sure that all of the programs that we offer are rich and safe and really just super fun to be a part of. When we put together instructor teams, not only are we looking for people who have a passion and an experience working directly with young people and building positive educational and enriching experiences, we also want to make sure that our instructors are excellent risk managers. And so on all of Bold and Gold courses, every instructor is trained to at least a wilderness first aid level, which is a 16-hour wilderness medical course. And all courses will also have someone who's trained at the wilderness first responder level, which is a higher certification, which is 80 hours of experience and training to handle any kind of medical or emergency in the backcountry. And on top of that, we'll also stay in touch with all of our trips via satellite phone. So if things happen in the field where instructors need additional support or guidance from our director team, they can do so 24/7. But as you can see here, this is a collection of our staff members from last summer. One of my favorite things about Bold and Gold as well is the community of instructors and staff that we have put together. Many of our instructors have worked with Bold and Gold before, and this summer we'll have staff members on their second, third, or even fourth season working with our young people in the program. And the fact that people have chosen to stay with Bold and Gold for such a long time and to keep coming back year after year really allows us to run incredible programs. And I want to turn it over to Catherine next to talk about what happens on a Bold and Gold program.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm going to talk about our Bold and Gold curriculum. So what your young person can expect to learn on their adventure. So all of our curriculum is really leadership development focused, as leadership development is in the name of our program. And we do this a number of different ways. One example is all participants on the trip will rotate being the leader of the day. So they each get an opportunity to lead their peers, and that could be leading the navigating in partnership with their instructors. They get to determine when to stop and take water breaks. And each trip is a little bit different, but the underlying theme is that they all get an opportunity to work on their voice as a leader. Another thing that we do each evening is Courage Circle. So this is a daily debrief of the day. It has a lot of different components, but some basic parts of the Courage Circle each night are a go-around question. So each person is sharing their voice. Sometimes they do highs and lows of the days, or as we call it, rosebud thorn. So the best part of your day, the lowest part of your day, and something you're looking forward to coming up. We also have a focus on positive and constructive ownership. So this is a reflection on yourself. What did you do really well that day? That's your positive ownership. And what's something you want to work on for tomorrow? For me, it might be, oh, tomorrow I want to try to drink more water because I'm feeling really sluggish right now. I think I only had, 2 liters of water. Tomorrow I want to try to drink 3 liters of water. Another thing that we do is just teachable moments throughout the day. So there's so many lessons to be learned in the backcountry, whether it just be building a fire, assisting in hanging a bear hang, or learning some positive conflict resolution techniques to use with your peers on the trip. So our curriculum is broad reaching and our instructors are really skilled in incorporating it throughout each day. One curriculum component that we have is the Leader in Training program, which is a program I oversee, and we have a former Leader in Training, Cameron, who is going to talk about her experience in that program. So I'll turn it over to Cameron.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Cameron, and I was a leader in training last year, and I will also be a leader in training this year because I just loved it so much. Before I was a leader in training, I did a Bold and Gold program called the Art of Leadership. So I went out for 3 weeks, which was a lot, and it was like my first time backpacking ever. And I went out for 3 weeks, and we were in the Olympics and the Cascades and in Mount Erie, and it was incredible. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about how to communicate with others, as Catherine mentioned, about conflict resolution and how to work things out. And I wanted to go further with that, so that's why I decided to be an LIT last year. Greatest decision ever, because the pandemic hit and I was stuck alone for so long at my house, super boring. And then we actually got to go out and meet people and talk to each other. And it just was incredible to make real life connections that had been online for so long. So for the LIT program, usually there's a first week where you gather all the materials, you get to know everyone, and then you go out on a trip and you get to talk about conflict resolution, outdoor skills like cooking, cleaning, sleeping, and you just get to chill out and enjoy the nature. So we did a 1-week training trip, and then after that, we all went our separate ways and did a trip with a bunch of middle schoolers. So for my trip, I was in the Cascades with a group of middle school girls, and we were up around Ross Lake, and it was really great because I got to act as kind of the switcheroony person between the campers and the instructors, and it really helped me grow as a leader, and I loved watching the younger participants grow as their own leaders. So if you're older and have done Bold and Gold for a couple of years and you want a new challenge, I would really recommend the LIT program. And I'm going to pass it back to Catherine.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron. And yeah, if you have a young person who's on a middle school trip, there's a high likelihood that they will have an LIT on their program who's there as a liaison between the participants and the instructors. And they're just really awesome young people and great role models for all of our participants. I'm going to talk about what a typical day looks like on a Bold and Gold trip. So I'm going to focus today on a backpacking trip, though climbing trips are pretty similar as well. So on a typical trip, you'll wake up in the morning, probably around 7 a.m., depends on the trip. And there'll be some sort of breakfast. So if you have a big day, maybe it'll be a quick breakfast like oatmeal or granola. If you have a more leisurely morning, you could have kind of more complicated breakfast like cheesy hash browns or pancakes, something that takes a little bit more involvement. After everyone is feeling fed, then you will break down your campsite for the day. So that means taking down your shelter. We use something called a mid, which is short for a pyramid. So it kind of looks like a circus tent type of shelter. They're really easy to put up and take down, and they're really lightweight. So you'll take down your shelter. You'll get ready for your day in your hiking clothes, and then you will pack up your backpack. Everyone has their personal gear in there, so that's their sleeping bag, sleeping pad, your clothes, and then you'll also carry a portion of the food, and you will carry a portion of the group gear. So that might be, you could be responsible for the pole that goes to your mid and the pot and a dromedary, which is a bag that holds water. You would carry it when it was empty. In the morning, you would also take some time to filter water and make sure we have full water bottles for the day. Divide out who is the leader of the day, and then hit the trail. A typical day of hiking could consist between 3 and 5 miles, perhaps. It varies. We also make sure to incorporate rest days, which I will talk about later. So those are days where you don't hike at all. But on a day where you're hiking, you'll leave your campsite in the morning, see ya, hike on the trail for a while. You'll stop for lunch on the trail. So that's typically tortillas with peanut butter and jelly or summer sausage and cheese, some sort of filling meal that has a lot of good protein in it, and with also snacks throughout the day. You're going to take lots of breaks while you're hiking too to drink water, take in the views, maybe play a quick game to keep motivation up. You can expect to get into your campsite on a normal day, I'd say around 3 or 4 p.m. Usually there is a time then where we set up the campsite, the next campsite for the night. So getting all of the shelters put up, kind of taking the food out, getting all of that organized. And then there's usually a little rest or downtime. Perhaps an instructor or an LIT will lead a game. Perhaps you'll have just time to read or relax. If it's a nice day and you're on like Ross Lake rather, maybe you'll go for a swim. So there's lots of different things that could happen. Dinner, there's lots of different dinner options. We try to choose meals that are not too heavy to carry, that are pretty kid friendly and are easy to prepare. So a dinner meal might be mac and cheese, or maybe your group will make pita pizzas, and you could have curried rice stir fry. There's lots of options. So your instructors, before the trip goes out, determine the menu and make sure they have a good, well-rounded, balanced meal available. So you'll eat dinner, and then after dinner is Courage Circle, which I mentioned earlier. So that's the reflection group time. Weather and fire safety permitting, you might have Courage Circle around a campfire at night. If there's a burn ban or wildfires in the area, then maybe that will be a little circle of Nalgene's with headlamps under to simulate a fake campfire. But overall, it's a nice time to come together and reflect on the day and prepare for the next day ahead. And then it's time for bed. So that is what a whole day looks like. A rest day, which I will talk about now, is a day when you don't hike at all. So you get to wake up in your campsite, and then you're staying at that same campsite that night. But this day isn't just sitting around all day. We like to make sure that rest days are a balance of recovering from the days of hiking beforehand, but also a time to do more activities and curriculum together. So you can see in this photo, one of our instructors, Cricky, is leading an initiative that I don't know what the objective is, but it looks complicated with all those little squares drawn on the dirt. So there's the instructors will make sure it's a full day of fun stuff. Something I like to do on Olympic coastal trips is to take the group tide pooling, where we can explore sea anemones and sea stars and barnacles and all sorts of fun things in the water and learn about the environment that way. Another activity might be a short hike to a different spot that you haven't gone to yet. Swimming, rest days are also a great time to make more elaborate meals. So things that have kind of a few more steps and more people can get involved in the preparation of that. So rest days are still filled with a lot of activities. Another important part of Bold and Gold trips is leave no trace. So these are 7 guiding principles that a lot of outdoors people follow in order to make the least impact on the environment and the places that we visit. A few examples of the leave no trace principles are plan ahead and prepare. So we want to make sure that every trip that's going out, they have all of the maps they need, permits they need, they know where they're going, so they don't have to kind of do any sort of emergency camping or anything. Everything is planned out and ready to go. We only travel and camp on durable surfaces, so we use pre-existing campsites, we stay on the trail, we pack out all of our trash, and so that we don't want to leave any part of it behind. We try to respect wildlife and other people around us. We don't take back any souvenirs like rocks or sticks, even though it's really fun to see them out in the wild. We like to leave them where we find them so other folks can enjoy them as well. So leave no trace is super important to us. This picture here is from a Powerful Gifts trip, which is a backpacking and service trip. So this is all you see here is trash collected from the Olympic coast. So this trip went above and beyond leave no trace by helping to clean up after others as well. When you're getting ready for your trip, gear and packing, we often get a lot of questions about this, and we want to make sure you are feeling as prepared as possible. So in the parent handbook, which you can access on our website, there are all of the packing lists that you need. So you can kind of follow, there's a standard packing list, and then there's deviations out for the different types of trips, so additional things you might need. A few things I want to emphasize on gear and packing is to really stick to the packing list as much as possible while you're getting ready. This is our tried and true method of exactly what you need for a backpacking trip. Nothing more, nothing less. We go over everything the morning of, and we follow our packing list very carefully. So that when you're getting ready, that list is going to be your best resource. Please try to focus on bringing synthetic layers rather than cotton. Synthetic dries quickly and is just they layer very well. So sticking to wool or capilene layers is great. But also if you have like an Under Armour sports shirt that you wear, that works great as a base layer as well. So you do not need to go out and buy all new things from this packing list. Try to find things in your home first. And if you don't have that, everything that's on the packing list is available at our building for us to lend. So the morning of, you'll get it as well. Another thing I want to emphasize is bringing a backpack that is at least 65 liters. This is just kind of the minimum size we found that fits everything, your personal gear, the tent, the group gear, all of that. And then 2 more things I want to emphasize in packing and the gear you need. Bringing a sleeping bag that's going to be warm enough. So we like to encourage folks to bring mummy style sleeping bags. They just pack down a little bit easier. Synthetic is great as well. Stays dry in our rainy Pacific Northwest weather, and just kind of generally is a little lighter weight. And then a sleeping pad as well. Some people are really excited about bringing inflatable sleeping pads, which We could argue it's definitely more comfortable, but closed cell, you're going to stay comfortable more in the long run because you won't have issues with your sleeping pad popping or having to repair it in the field. So we really encourage folks to bring closed cell foam sleeping pads. So those are like the Thermarest Z-Lite ones. They're about $30 in the store, or like I said earlier, we have many available to lend out as well. So that is no problem. The last point I'll make about packing and the packing list is really limiting the toiletries that you bring. You really don't need much. A toothbrush, toothpaste, and sunscreen are usually the only items that I bring for toiletries. Everything else, anything that's smelly, has to get packed in a bear can or a bear hang at night. So it takes up, if each person brings a toiletry bag that's this big, pretty big, it won't all fit in the bear hang or the bear cans at night. And you really don't need more than that. You're out in the open air each day. You're staying clean in other ways. And so you don't need to bring, there's really no need for deodorant in particular. If you're someone whose hair needs to be brushed each day, that's fine. A small comb or a pick is totally fine as well. We just want to limit the overall number of products you're bringing. You also might have some questions about what kind of things you eat. I went over a little bit of the food during the typical day, but generally, like I said, the meals are lightweight, so you're not carrying too much in your backpack. They're kid-friendly, and most importantly, we want to accommodate all food, dietary and allergy restrictions. So it's really important to double check on your forms that you listed all allergies and dietary restrictions that your young person has. The day before your trip, you will get a call from one of your instructors 1 or 2 days beforehand. And in that call, that's where they'll double check, like, hey, I saw on your form that you listed you are allergic to peanuts. And does this mean you're anaphylactic, or can you be on a trip that has peanuts and you just can't ingest them? We really want to make sure we know as much information as possible. And accordingly, we'll plan the menu to make sure everyone has a nutritious and filling meal to eat each day. I'm going to turn it over now to Jeff to talk about risk management in COVID on Bold and Gold trips.
So I'll start by just giving a bit of an overview of Bold and Gold's approach to risk management as a whole, and then I'll speak a little bit about COVID as well, as I know that's a big question on everyone's minds. So first, risk management within Bold and Gold is an organizational philosophy. We believe in a systems approach to managing our risk, both in our office at our base camp and in the field, and that really involves the support of the Y, our land managers, our partners in the Camping and Outdoor Leadership branch, as well as external resources. And our goal is to ensure not only the physical safety of our participants and our staff, but also the emotional safety of our participants and staff. So our program, Bold and Gold, has an extensive emergency action plan that has been developed. So in the event of emergency, we will work not only with the partners I mentioned, but also the land managers. So state parks, the National Park Service, National Forest Service, etc., to ensure that our groups have the support they need in the field. In addition to what Jordan said, I'll also highlight that all of our staff, both in the office and in the field, have extensive medical training, and they have also been trained in our emergency action plan. All of our course instructors, as well as our office staff, are CPR and first aid trained, with the majority having at least a wilderness first responder level of training. Additionally, each of our backcountry groups will carry a satellite phone that's there so that they can make scheduled check-in calls, as well as contact us in the event of an emergency. One thing that I do like to highlight is that satellite phones are different than our regular cell phones. They're very reliable and our groups can contact us as needed, but they can't receive text messages or send photos or receive photos. They're really only for voice calls, and they're really only used so that we can contact our groups and in the case of an emergency. Now, on the other end of that satellite phone will be a on-call director who is available 24/7 anytime there is a group or a participant in the field. And they'll be the one that receive that call and work with the rest of our team in the event of an emergency to activate our emergency action plan and take the necessary steps. One other thing I like to highlight is that in addition to all of the internal resources we have in place, we also have a 24/7 on-call medical advisory, which allows us to seek additional advice in the event that there's an incident or accident or a medical condition in which we would like to just kind of receive some guidance. And the best example I can give of this is a number of years ago, we had a young person who had a cut on the inside of their lip, and our instructors were concerned about how best to treat that. And in conjunction with the on-call medical, we made the decision for that young person to come out of the field and visit a doctor. They received some antibiotics and were able to go right back in. But it gives us peace of mind to know that we have additional medical resources behind the scenes to help us when we're making decisions. And then the last piece I want to highlight is our teen abuse prevention protocols. So this is a big part of the work that we all do here collectively within the Y to create inclusive and emotionally safe spaces. So all of our staff and our leaders in training participate in a teen abuse prevention training, which focuses on mandatory reporting, as well as appropriate behavior and relationships amongst teens and staff. The last thing that I will share on that note is that each of our groups will take part in an opening circle, and a piece of that will be non-negotiables. So we lay out a short list of things that are absolutely must-dos during our trips. So for example, we are an alcohol and drug-free space in our base camp and on all of our trips. And you'll see more of that. It's in our parent and family handbook as well. But I do like to highlight that that sets the expectations not only for our participants, but for our staff and what we expect things to look like for the duration of the trip. So then the next big piece of this is COVID. So Bold and Gold operated last summer and has continued to operate through this past school year. Many of the policies and procedures that were put in place that we developed in conjunction with public health, the ACA, American Camp Association, and within our Camping and Outdoor Leadership branch are going to stay the same. So many of the health and hygiene things that we were doing were things that were already ingrained in what Bold and Gold does, from hand washing to sanitation in the backcountry, etc. So we don't expect to see any change in that way there. Our overall approach to all of this really meshes nicely with what Bold and Gold does and how we're set up. Given that we're in a small cohort model in the wilderness, it really lends itself to social distancing and allows us to do a good job with contact tracing in the event that there is symptoms or a positive COVID case. So overall, I just want to highlight some of the bigger picture COVID actions that we're taking. So we have a really rigorous cleaning and sanitation schedule for both our building and for our trips in the backcountry. Overall, our main focus here is on ensuring that we are cleaning things and making sure that we're rotating things appropriately. Physical distancing requirements are still in place. So anytime that our groups, participants, or staff are closer than 6 feet, they'll be asked to wear a mask. Even though new CDC guidance came out this week, we are still adhering to that at this point until we receive guidance from either the Washington State Public Health or King County. We'll be doing daily health screenings, so both for our participants and our staff. And the big thing that we're seeking there is to understand how folks are feeling, if they have any symptoms, so that we can make decisions on how best to proceed from there. And then the last big thing that I'll highlight here is that our groups are in what we're calling cohorts. So all of our instructors and all the participants on a single trip will remain together with minimal activity with outside groups for the duration of their trip. They'll start their opening circle here. They'll move through our space to do their gear check and prepare to depart, and then they will leave on their own single YMCA minibus. Once they get to the trailhead or to the front country campground, they'll more or less be by themselves, except for maybe occasionally passing other folks on the trail for the duration of their trip. And then when they return, the same thing will happen. So they'll pass through our building to do their de-issue and prepare, and then they'll head out to the field to meet with their caregivers and family for closing circle. This has always been our model. We've certainly been more strict about this in terms of really minimizing groups interacting or crossing paths, but we feel like it worked really well last summer, and we're excited to continue this moving forward. The other piece that I will highlight, because this is a question that's coming up a lot, is where is Bold and Gold? Where is the Y in regards to what do they need to do to prepare before their summer activity with Bold and Gold this summer? So the majority, if not all, of our staff are vaccinated. Even though that's the case, when they arrive, they'll still be doing health screens both here in our office and while they're in their trips. Any participant who's going on a Bold and Gold trip will be asked to get take a negative test or take a COVID test within 3 days prior to the start of their trip, and then bring those results to check-in. That's going to be an important part of our policy moving into the summer, not just here with Bold and Gold, but across Camp Orkila, Camp Coleman as well. And I guess I will just add that as the vaccines for young teens has continued to expand, we'll be working with public health to revisit that. But even though many of our staff, if not all, are vaccinated, we'll continue to be doing testing and health screening for the duration of the summer so that we can best track where things are at and ensure that we're following the best, most recent public health guidance. All right. Thanks all. I look forward to answering some questions on that.
So I'm excited to start talking a little bit about where our trips are going to go this summer. We're going to start with Olympic National Park. Olympic National Park is kind of one of our strongest partnerships that we have across Washington. And before I talk much more about them, they have provided us a video to kind of introduce them and the work that they do with us this summer. So here's that video.
Hello, my name's Chris Steele, and I'm here at Olympic National Park. I'm so excited to welcome you, YMCA Bold and Gold. We know that you are the future of stewardship and wilderness, and we've been working with you for several years now. So we look forward to every one of your group's visits, and we hope you have the best time.
That was Christelle. Christelle works as one of the rangers, and she's one of our kind of youth outreach coordinators. And so Christelle and I talk quite often throughout the year and work together to make sure that all our trips are going to be super successful and fun. Christelle double checks our itineraries, make sure that where we're going to go is safe to be, and just provides awesome insights into being in the park. And she's one of many folks on the Ranger and Wilderness Information Center team that may have the opportunity to interact with our groups this summer. We have another video to show as well, which was captured on a trip that looks very similar to our Powerful Gifts service trip that was mentioned earlier. So let's take a look at that.
That's so amazing.
These past 2 weeks, we took a group of high school age volunteers. We taught them how to live in a crew and build a team. And then we asked the members to take that team and remove debris from the Olympic coast wilderness.
It is important for people to volunteer in national parks because it just brings them one step closer to the park and to the natural world around them.
I hope that I'm helping the environment and helping everyone else see that there are beautiful places like this, and you can help out by cleaning up and allowing others to also see the beauty of it.
I don't think there's anywhere else on the planet exactly like this, and it definitely needs to be protected. I want to help make this a better place.
Last year, 60,000 hours were put in by volunteers around the park. So we are so thankful and so reliant on our volunteers. This program is so important because not only are they taking the trash off of the beach, they're inspiring people who see them to think about their choices, what kind of trash they create and what kind of trash they leave behind.
The work that you folks are doing is really crucial to the Park Service mission because it's not something that's done once, it's a continued effort that's needed. The Park Service thrives on working with volunteers. You're helping to actually preserve that wilderness character out here.
think volunteering is important to living a full life. This trip has influenced how I'm going to live the rest of my life. I already miss the beach.
Volunteering for the national park could probably fix anyone's ruined day. Sure did fix mine.
I think that
everyone should volunteer in national parks.
You may have noticed that that was a trip from the Student Conservation Association, which is another really incredible program. As I mentioned before, our Powerful Gifts trip is a 2-week program that will do very, very similar activities. And that video also gives us a really awesome overview of what it looks like to spend time out on the coast. So branding aside, that is very close to an experience that you may have with us this summer. The next park I want to talk about is North Cascades National Park. North Cascades National Park is about 2.5 hours north of Seattle, and is really an incredible location as well. We'll spend time in a couple different areas of the national park. We'll be in the north unit. We'll be hiking all around Ross Lake. Some of our courses will actually have the opportunity to start or end or get to take a boat ride across Ross Lake, which is one of the most special ways to be out up in that space. And then other trips will be in that south part of the park, hiking all the way down to the north end of Lake Chelan, where some groups will even receive a resupply halfway through their trip from a boat. But Ross Lake and North Cascades National Park, beautiful views, wonderful wildflowers, a really, really another just true treasure of a natural space in Washington. And let's look at our next area. Well, actually, I'll talk a little bit briefly. We also in Ross Lake will also be doing some backpacking and some fishing courses as well. So lots of really cool ways to be in that next space. Tahoma, or Mount Rainier National Park, Tahoma, the ancestral name of that mountain. Our Tahoma camping and hiking courses will go here and have a really awesome introduction to another beautiful national park. Mount Rainier National Park was actually the 5th national park to be created, which is very cool. So one of the original in the national park system. Our Tahoma camp and hike courses, they will spend their time at a front country campsite and then spend each day hiking around different areas in Mount Rainier National Park. So getting to see perhaps both of the different kind of lodge spaces and then really spending each day in the shadow of the mountain, looking at an incredible old growth forest and the beautiful views of Rainier, or Tahoma as it is also known. Our next park, Mount Erie. If you're signed up to do a Sea to Summit course, you'll be climbing at Mount Erie. Mount Erie is located up near Anacortes and with views of Deception Pass and the San Juan Islands. And our Sea to Summit courses, they'll spend their time camping at Bayview State Park, which is a not too far drive from Mount Erie. And then each day with our climbing instructor teams, getting to climb all over the rocks. So learning how to top rope climb, maybe learning how to rappel, and getting to spend days climbing, doing some top rope climbing, and then also exploring the area on foot. But Mount Erie is another really cool local climbing site that is a really awesome place to get introduced to the sport of climbing. All right. As far as what's next, we're going to be talking with Robin about what to expect.
Thank you, Jordan. So what to expect? What next? Well, next slide, please. You can expect to receive a call from your instructors. As Catherine mentioned, 1 to 2 days prior to your trip, your instructors will call to introduce themselves, to check in, to see how you are feeling, answer any last minute questions you may have. The call will be to the participant. And parents and guardians, you can hop on after, but they're calling to start to build relationship with the participant. It's going to be very important that you provide us with as much information as possible on the admissions forms. This is, as Catherine said, we will be building out the curriculum and the menus from the information you provide us. As Catherine also mentioned, that we can accommodate any dietary restrictions. We can actually work with families if there's special situations. Our logistics manager will work with that family to ensure that we have the proper nutrition for that young person. Next slide, please. So your trips will begin and end at our base camp, which is the Y at the Cascade People Center, 309 Pontius Avenue North. There's the mapping, you can see the building. The check-in will take place there, and we will meet on the back field. There's a field behind there. Before your departure date, you will receive a letter, a welcome letter, which will give you your check-in time. This is a little different than in the past. It's a COVID protocol. So there'll be staggered check-in times, and so that we can process everyone and get their health screenings done. And next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, the admissions process, it is very important that you provide us with complete medical, behavioral history or your dietary needs. If you are talking about some medical history or incident that has happened, please give us some explanation. If you mention that they have had an injury to their ankle or they've been hospitalized, it's really helpful to know when that occurred. I don't want to know, it happened last week, and then we get someone that's coming to our course that may not be up for hiking 3 to 5 miles. So provide us with as much information as possible. And there is a parent questionnaire, parent guardian questionnaire, as well as a participant questionnaire. Please provide us with the information there as well. Fill those out. Participants, this is your opportunity to tell us what you want from this trip. And the instructors are looking very closely at that. We ask you, why do you want to do this? And be completely honest. And what do you like to do? How do you describe yourself? If there's anything that you're concerned about, you get that turned into us ahead of time prior to that call, then the instructors can go over that. We ask you for your excitement level on a scale of 1 to 5. Where are you? Is there anything that you want to tell us? I know there was one participant that said they were really excited to see the stars. So knowing that, the instructors took out star charts so that they could really look at the stars. So that you provide us with information, and then we will try to tailor the trip for you. All right, so now we're going to come to our question section. And Chris, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you tell me what questions we have?
Yeah, I think to start, we're going to cover COVID testing. A lot of questions on that. So a lot of questions around, does my participant need to take a COVID test? And do they need to take a test if they're vaccinated?
Jeff, will you handle that? Take this one, please.
Yes. So the short answer to that question is that we don't know yet. So with our staff, if they are vaccinated, they are not required to get a COVID test when they report to work. With the expansion of COVID vaccines to 12 to 15-year-olds, we know that we are awaiting an answer from public health on that question. I would say my hope is that if folks are fully vaccinated, participants are fully vaccinated and past the 2-week time frame after their second shot, that they would be able to forego the test. We will be updating our COVID frequently asked questions and sharing that information out as soon as we confirm from public health what that strategy will be. It's been an outstanding question because we do have 16, 17, and 18-year-old participants, but we have not received an answer yet from King County Public Health. So while I'm sure that is absolutely on everyone's mind, I will just say thank you for being patient while we kind of work through this phase of COVID right now, and rest assured that as soon as we have a confirmed answer, we will be sharing that out with everyone, both on our website and any of our communications as well.
Thank you, Jeff. And another question about testing. We have a number of participants that are coming off of other activities just prior to our going out on a course with us. Will we require them to be tested and proof of that prior to coming to us?
Yes, so our strategy and policy will remain the same. We'll be asking everyone to get a test and to provide those results. What I will say is that we will have rapid antigen tests available here at check-in, a small number of them that'll be available in the event that someone has not received the results. What we will ask is that they can show us documentation that they received a test, and then we'll conduct a rapid antigen test at check-in. As long as everything comes back negative, we will move forward and ask the family or caregiver to make sure they follow up with us to confirm that those results were negative. We're hoping and expecting that this would be a rare occurrence, not just with the Y, but in general, all overnight programming for teens and youth is requiring a negative test upon arrival. And we really are encouraging folks to self-monitor symptoms, not only for the participants, but for the entire family or household, as well as quarantine as much as possible. The success of this summer is really going to depend on how well we can do, just limiting our exposure kind of across the community until COVID cases continue to decrease.
Thank you, Jeff. Chris, back to you. Our next question.
Yeah, we have a question. Can we talk more about the sleeping situation, especially regarding COVID? How many kids are in a tent, that sort of thing?
Jeff, since you're on the COVID track, I'm going to ask you to answer that as well.
Yeah, so Bold and Gold encourages all of our groups, when possible, weather-wise, to sleep under the stars. So on ground tarps in their sleeping pads. So that's the most open air setup that we can have. In the event that that's not possible, and every one of our groups will travel with a tent, what we use are called pyramids or mids. So they are open air. They do not have a bottom, so it allows good airflow. That's what we've historically used as a program, and we found that other industry leaders are doing the same thing during COVID. It allows our participants to spread out within the mids, which are much larger. Yeah, perfect. That's a great photo. They're much larger than a traditional tent, especially at the base, and that allows 3 to 4 participants to sleep around the outside of it in a square, kind of head to foot, which allows some distance, good airflow, and continues to kind of fit within the COVID policies and procedures that we have as well. But I will emphasize that while the mids go out, when at all possible, we're encouraging instructors, participants to sleep under the stars. It's an amazing outdoor experience, and while the weather can change from day to day, we really do hope that's something that folks can take advantage of.
Thank you, Jeff. And you can see in that photo that there's that airflow under, and the front of it can roll back so that it's pretty much just overhead shelter. Chris, and our next question, please.
What are the average miles hiked a day? We've gotten a couple of questions around that.
Catherine, we want to handle that one?
Yes, definitely. So the average miles hiked per day really does depend on the age of the participant. So in middle school trips, they'll be a little bit lighter. Maybe you will hike 1.5 to 4 miles a day. On some of the older high school trips, that mileage could be a little bit higher, somewhere up between 3 and possibly you'd have a long day of like 7 miles on one day. But we make sure all of our itineraries are appropriate for the age of the participants, and we make sure to kind of switch up the itinerary through the week so we have rest days at appropriate times as well.
Thank you. And Jordan, can you expand on that response that you help work with the parks to set our itinerary? So would it rarely, or would it ever be the first day they're going to hike 10 miles? Is there a progression in mileage? And can you talk more about that?
Definitely. So yeah, when we build out itineraries, there's a couple different systems that we use. In North Cascades National Park, we'll submit our itineraries beforehand, and then they'll get assembled by the park staff. In Olympic National Park, we actually have the ability to kind of hand create our itineraries. And when we do, we pay really close attention to how long it takes a group to travel out to their destination, to make sure that that first day is really manageable. So a typical first day mileage would really be between 1.5 to 3 miles. As a trip ramps up, they might start to see some 3 to 4 mile days, and our high school trips might kind of push in, as Catherine mentioned, that 5 to 7 mile range. And when we know we have some of those longer days, we also want to break them up with rest days so that if a group does a really long day, they have that next day to stay put at their campsite and to rest and recuperate before getting back on trail. And then the same is true for when a trip comes out. We know that in order to get a group back from Olympic National Park back to Seattle to have their closing circle by 4 o'clock, that often means they'll need to have a shorter hike to get ready for their pickup. So that last day, of course, will usually be a shorter day as well to facilitate an easy transportation back into the city.
And Catherine, thank you, Jordan. Catherine, can you talk about the amount of weight that the participants will carry?
Yeah, sure. So we make sure that no young person is carrying more than they can. A typical percentage we somewhat aim for is no more than 30% of their body weight. And this isn't an exact science, but our instructors make sure to divide out the group gear and the food bags appropriately. And our instructors also know that any of that extra weight is going in their packs and they're ready for that and able to carry it as well. And we also might divide out the weight of packs if someone is kind of feeling under the weather on one of the days and they kind of need a lighter pack. Our instructors are just really sensitive to making sure that everyone has an appropriately weighted pack. The last thing I will mention is has just left my mind. So hopefully I can remember that thought in a little bit and tag in. But yeah, overall, no one is carrying more than is appropriate.
Thank you. Chris, do we have any more questions from?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions. We have a participant family who has a non-binary participant and was asking if we could talk a little bit about gender inclusion in the Gold program.
Thank you. Catherine, would you handle this one for me, please?
Yes, definitely. So on all Bold and Gold trips, we encourage young people to sign up for whichever trip they feel most comfortable on. And our staff and instructors recognize that gender is a spectrum and work to create a safe space for all young people. Courage Circle is a time when groups can dive deeper into identity and group dynamics, should they need or want to dive in deeper. And one-on-one check-ins, which occur every other day, are a time when young people can address concerns they have with other group members in privacy, and instructors will address the issues appropriately. Overall, we emphasize leadership, respect, and adventure to create a positive group dynamic for all of our participants.
Thank you. Any other questions, Chris?
Yeah, so we have had a couple about gear rentals, asking, do we need to try on the backpacks beforehand if we're renting a backpack, or do we just wait until the expedition begins to get the gear?
How about Jordan? Can you take this one for us, please?
Most certainly. So before any trip leaves from the Cascade People Center to head out to where their course will begin, we do something we call a duffel shuffle or a gear check. And so our logistics coordinators, whose job it is to manage our inventory of gear and equipment to make sure that each group has all of the things they need, will work with each participant to make sure that not only do they have all the right layers, but that the pack that they're carrying fits them appropriately and will be able to handle all of the gear and equipment they're taking on course. So we will do a pack fitting as a part of that gear shuffle or that duffel shuffle, that gear check. We've got backpacks of tons of different sizes. We and are fully able to appropriately size and set up gear and equipment. And that also includes like things like boots or hiking pants or rain jackets, not just backpacks. Any piece of gear or equipment that someone needs to have with them in the backcountry to be safe and comfortable, we have on file and can create time to make sure that it goes out and fits appropriately.
Thank you. I know in doing outreach, going out into the community to talk about our programs, I will use that and say that gear should not be a barrier. We can outfit anyone from head to toe. And in the past, we've had participants, one guy showed up with a toothbrush and toothpaste, took us literally, and that's all he had. So we actually had to run out and get some undergarments as well. So REI is very close. We always want to make sure that our gear library is outfitted from very small sizes to very large sizes. I'm going to go back to our paperwork. That is why it is so important that you provide us with that information about sizing, because we're trying to anticipate what type of gear we will need any given week. Even if you are planning to bring your own gear, sometimes it may not be appropriate and we would want to switch something out. If we are switching something out, like you've brought a backpack and it isn't the proper size or isn't fitting properly, we would not charge you for the rental of that piece since you made the attempt to provide it, and we just wanted to switch out for something we felt was more appropriate. Thank you. Chris, any other questions?
Yeah, some questions about food. I think the best way to answer this is, what do we do if we have a vegetarian camper, and is that something we're able to manage?
Jeff, would you handle this one, please?
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. As long as you fill out your paperwork and accurately describe the dietary needs, we feel very confident in our ability to accommodate more or less any of those things. So vegetarian, vegan, etc. We've been able to make that work not only with our staff, but with our participants in the past. The other thing that I would say is our operations supervisor, Carly, is also available if you'd like to have additional conversations on the phone or over email to kind of talk about the details of that. The sooner we know the dietary restrictions, the better off we can do in terms of sourcing and making sure that we have the right meal plan and the right ingredients put together so that everyone has a successful trip. But again, short answer is yes. The more you tell us, the more we can do to customize and accommodate.
Thank you. That's one of the things I think is so special about Bold and Gold, is this a very small group with this tailored trip. So as you said, we are planning the meals according to the information that you are providing us with. Thank you. Chris, other questions, please?
Yeah, we have a question about bathrooms. So I think that we can maybe just have someone talk a little bit about what that looks like on our trips.
Jordan, you want to handle that?
Absolutely. This is a great question to talk about because it's definitely something that can look and feel much different than using the bathroom in a non-outdoor setting. So bathrooms look a couple of different, or using the bathroom in the backcountry can look a couple of different ways. A lot of the campsites that our trips will go to will have access to either pit toilets or outdoor privies. And I would say that would be kind of the most rustic bathroom kind of situation one could see, or something that would be where you would still have the opportunity to sit. But we also, all of our instructors will also be ready to teach folks about how to use the bathroom on trail, or if a privy or pit toilet is not available. This is kind of one of the most important leave no trace principles, is how to dispose of waste properly, and that includes bodily waste. And that's a thing that is a really natural part of being outdoors and camping. We will carry what we call kind of a poop kit or a toilet kit, and in that is hand sanitizer, a trowel, and toilet paper. And we'll talk about how to dig something called a cat hole, which is a hole that is at least 6 inches deep that we'll use to cover bodily waste, and then cover it back up and then continue on the way. And if that sounds scary or hard or challenging, it can be, but it's also one of the really kind of unique opportunities to kind of grow and stretch ourselves out in the backcountry, and kind of a cool thing to say that you've learned how to do. It's something that not a lot of people may have experience with, and maybe it feels kind of weird at the start, but is just kind of one of the ways that we learn how to navigate being outdoors and kind of accommodating the leave no trace principles. Anyone else want to add anything to that I may have missed?
Thank you. Catherine, would you jump in with that question, please?
Yes, definitely. So adding on to using the bathroom in the backcountry, I also want to talk a little bit about menstruating in the backcountry. If this is something that might happen on one of your trips, we pack out trips with something called a blue bag, which is an opaque odor-proof bag, and we put that blue bag in a paper bag as well. So this is somewhere where you can, we do have to pack out any menstruation products like pads or tampons that someone might have used. So that is your personal blue bag for the trip. We make sure to emphasize hygiene as well. So we always have hand washing stations available at our campsites, and hand sanitizer. You'll have your own personal hand sanitizer and personal soap as well, so you can stay clean in that way. We put these blue bags in the bear cans or bear hangs at night, so we make sure to odor-proof our whole campsite as well. But it's a very natural part. It's very common in the backcountry as well, and our instructors are definitely aware of that and want to make sure all young people have the tools they need to stay clean and safe on their trip.
Thank you. And I will also add that even if you have had your cycle just before, bring your favorite supplies anyway. It could be these different activities. You could bring it on again. Thank you. Any other questions, Chris?
Yeah, we have a question about contact lenses. Is that something that we're able to manage in the backcountry, and is the water clean enough to clean them and that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Jeff, you want to handle this one? Contact lenses and eyewear in general?
So I would say this is a little bit determined based on the individual. Some folks will prefer to bring them, but in general, we discourage that if at all possible. And in any event, even if you come with lenses, you certainly need to bring a backup pair of glasses. And if you are a glasses wearer, we still encourage you to bring a backup pair. There's always things that can happen, things that get misplaced or broken. We want to make sure that folks, all participants, have what they need. What I will say is that some trips, so for example, Sea to Summit or beyond, or to Homa, are in an area where yes, they have access to more regular clean water in a front country campsite than the backcountry trips, and that might be more appropriate than that setting than not. The other thing that I will mention is that having those glasses is going to be a crucial part of this, because we want to also take into account that, as Robin mentioned, this is a different setting, it's a different environment, and even folks who are really used to contact lenses, sometimes their eyes can get irritated, and we want to make sure that they have an option in place. So in general, I would say we're looking more to glasses, but can definitely have kind of a one-on-one conversation to try to figure out, based on the trip and the participant, what will make the most sense.
Thank you, Jeff. Other questions, Chris?
Yeah. Just going back a little bit to gear questions, someone asking about sleeping pad criteria and asking about inflatable sleeping pads.
Catherine, will you take this, please?
Yeah, I can talk, I can address a few of the gear questions that I'm seeing on the Q&A. So as I mentioned in the gear portion, we really have a strong preference for foam or closed cell sleeping pads. So those are ones that you do not inflate or do not self-inflate. This is just because we camp in all sorts of different environments, and sleeping pads are a really necessary risk management part of our trip. It might not seem that way, but this is what keeps you warm at night and is really a critical part. So having something that you don't have to blow up and deflate each morning, it could pop. There's just a lot of different things that might go wrong. So again, closed cells are strong preference. We have many, many available to lend out as well. So this isn't something that you need to go and specially buy unless you really want to for the future. Again, if you are feeling concerned about this, you are always welcome to call and we can have a more one-on-one conversation with you and your young person about those concerns. I'm also seeing a question on here about pack sizes. So I mentioned 65 liters as a minimum. I really do encourage that. This is, we send out many, many trips every weekend, all summer, for many years. And this is just what we have found to be the minimum size that works. I know for some younger participants, maybe you're 11 or 12 are still pretty small, but we make sure that the pack still fits. We have extra small packs available. If you already have the pack and you want to bring it with you that morning just to try and see if everything is going to fit in there, you can do that. But we might switch out for a bigger pack that we have in our stock as well if needed.
Thank you, Catherine. Can you speak to the gear that will be needed for our rock climbing trips and the Mount Rainier trips, the front country trips? Do they need to get a backpack as well, or can they? What do they need to bring?
Yeah. Great question, Robin. And yeah, I didn't really mention it. So for rock climbing trips, you don't need a backpack. You can just bring everything in a duffel bag. Still follow the packing list closely, but you will just be staying at a campground, so you won't need to carry in your stuff each day. And that's, again, if you wear contacts, there will be running water and sinks. So that's a little bit of a different situation, the front country sites. And we're a little bit more flexible with the front country ones, but overall, that's the one thing you don't need is a backpack, but everything else stays pretty much the same.
And how about a day pack? They're going to go hiking to the climbing site or day hikes do they need a day pack?
Yes, they do need a day pack. So this could be like your backpack that you wear to school. It's just kind of any bag that you can use to carry. We lend out climbing shoes, a harness, and helmets to each participant. So you need to be able to carry that in your lunch, which you'll pack at the campground in the morning, to and from the climb site each day. So a duffel bag and a small backpack. About school bag size. You don't really need anything much bigger or much smaller.
Thank you. So you're just everything you need for that day. So a warm layer, and just so when you're ready to leave a campsite, everything for the day you could put on your backpack, your day pack we call them, or your school backpack. If your school backpack is precious and you don't want to get it dirty, I wouldn't recommend bringing it because it's going to be in the dirt. All right, Chris, do you have any other questions? Thank you.
I do. We've got a couple of questions about like personal survival gear. So like a pocket knife, compass, fire starter. How do we feel about campers bringing those kinds of items on the trip?
Jeff, would you handle this, please?
Yeah, absolutely, Robin. So those are great examples of things that would be in our non-negotiables list. So anything that could be construed as a weapon of any sort, so even a pocket knife or any type of tool like that, we're going to ask folks to leave at home. Our instructors are going to have everything that they need with them to ensure that we can repair gear or fix things, et cetera, et cetera. And especially for something like a fire starter, our instructors are going to have the things that they need for our stoves. And if they're in an area that they can have campfires, they're going to have everything that they need. So in general, those things can be left at home. And when we do our gear check, we'll also go through and just make sure that folks have an opportunity to leave things behind locked up in a locker. And the main reason for that is we have to carry everything on our backs. So even being able to drop a few ounces here and there can make a really big difference for everybody, our participants and our staff. So for the most part, our handbook really outlines pretty nicely what are the things we want to leave at home and what are the things we want to take with us. But if you have any specific questions, you can certainly reach out to us and we can answer those beforehand or when you arrive. But those specific examples are definitely things that I would say should stay at home.
Thank you. And Jordan, can you expand on that just a little bit? The fact that someone's asking if they're going to bring a fire starter, can you talk a little bit about the crew, that the Bold and Grow, those participants and the staff coming together for a common goal, working together, each person having a role each day in the trip? Thank you.
Yeah, so to kind of build off of that, I mean, one of the core areas of focus on a Bold or a Gold course is to learn how to expedition together, to learn what it means to be on this trip and to be functioning as a team, and kind of that individual roles and responsibilities. So one person might be the leader of the day and be kind of directing the group as they kind of move about their campsite and move about their itinerary. One person might be kind of in charge of the cook crew and helping kind of steer the direction of getting meals prepared. Folks might also be on the cleaning crew to help make sure that the campsite stays clean and avoids attracting any kind of rodents or animals. And each group might also define kind of other areas of responsibility or other jobs that they want to take on for themselves. When it comes to starting a fire or repairing gear or equipment or kind of some of these tasks that might require additional tools, like we have that covered. We want to make sure that when we go out into the field, we have all the things that we need and aren't depending on gear coming from outside of the group itself. So for folks wondering about bringing multi-tools or fire starters or things like that, you get to leave those at home and not worry about breaking or damaging them, because that's stuff that we carry and all of our instructors are trained how to use. So if a stove is to malfunction for some reason, our instructors will know how to fix it. If we're in an area where fires are permitted, instructors will know how to properly gather firewood and build a fire that fits within the L&T guidelines and the guidelines for the areas that we're traveling in. So free your minds of having to bring any extra stuff that you don't strictly need to carry, and our instructors will take care of that for us. I think that's a really great thing for them to be able to do.
Thank you. Chris, any other questions? Chris, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we have a couple here that I'm gonna just combine kind of into one overall question. Are we going to shower, and can we bring deodorant?
Catherine, since you were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, so the short answer to are we going to shower is no. These trips, you know, this part about being in the backcountry. One, if you're on a backpacking trip, there just are not showers where we go along the Olympic coast or backpacking along Ross Lake. And you know, that's kind of part of being out there and in the elements with your crew. And like I said when I was talking about this earlier, it's just the open air. Things don't really smell as much as you would expect. It's just not really as noticeable until you get on the bus on the way home. But that's a different story. So no, we won't be showering. And in terms of bringing deodorant, you don't need it. We really encourage people to leave them at home. It's just one more thing to carry and one more thing for us to pack each night in bear cans or bear hangs, which can be really challenging. So we want people to bring as few toiletries as possible.
Thank you. Cameron, as a participant in LIT, can you speak a little bit about what it was like and how not to wear deodorant and not to shower for, you were out there for 3 weeks, right? On one of your trips, and you've been out for a week. So can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, definitely. After 3 weeks, I was very smelly. Like, it was gross, but you don't notice it after the first like 5 days. So normally you bring a hairbrush, no deodorant, everyone smells. So just is like a group aroma, if you know what I mean? And you can dip in lakes or rivers and rinse your hair and rinse your body, which helps a lot, and it feels really refreshing. But totally reasonable concern, but once you're out there, it's kind of put on the back burner.
Thank you. And I will tell you a short story. There was a crew that came back, a Art of Leadership, a 3-week trip, and they came back and said, "Oh my goodness, Robin, we met some hikers on the trail and we could smell them coming. We knew they were fresh on the trail. We could smell their lotions, their hair. We could smell their deodorant." And one of the things, we will be a group of 10, and you are taking on an aroma. Animals you can't see them, but they can smell you. And they're going to, we don't want to get anywhere near that. So it's okay. You're just going to take on, it's all natural, be very freeing. And when you come back home, you will so appreciate your shower or bath. You'll take the longest, and parents, please allow them to take the longest shower ever. It will feel so good. You will, just a reminder of how privileged we are to have these things. Chris, any other questions? Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, we have a question from someone that is a diabetic and is asking about how we manage how we would manage those supplies. And I think this is also a good opportunity to talk maybe a little more broadly about how we manage medications as a whole.
Yes, I'm going to give this to Jeff, risk management.
Great. So much like the dietary accommodations that we talked about earlier, the paperwork in UltraCamp or the paper files that you provide are going to be the best place to share that information with us. So as much detail as you can provide and as quickly as you can do so, that's great. We're also available for conversations. But in general, what will happen is any medications, any supplements, any vitamins, anything like that will need to be shared with us in advance, and at the very least when you arrive for check-in. What we'll do is we'll collect the information on the dosage and the schedule, and we fill out a medication log that is provided to our instructors to ensure that those things are followed. We collect all of the medications at check-in, and our instructors carry it with their first aid kit, which includes epi, meds, etc. And then the medications and the medication log are used throughout the day for the duration of the course to ensure that medications are administered and distributed and logged according to the schedule that was provided to us. And we'll confirm all of that at check-in too, but I certainly encourage folks to reach out to us if there are specific questions or concerns or just kind of want to walk through that process. But in general, there should be no issues with managing a young person who is diabetic. That's something we've certainly done in the past. But again, I would encourage you to reach out and we can maybe speak specifically about that if there are concerns. But holistically, that's kind of what our general approach looks like to the managing of medications from the start of the trip. And then at the end, everything will be returned to the participants and the caregivers at our closing circle.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, I'm going to emphasize the importance of getting the paperwork in ahead of time and not at the last minute, because there's a lot of prep that goes into putting these trips together. And then once we get the paperwork, each participant's file or paperwork is reviewed. And if we have questions, if we get it early enough, then I or someone on the admin team can reach out to get clarification. So as I said before, we are the family advocates, and we will do whatever we can to make this a pleasant and safe experience for you. Thank you. Chris, any other questions?
Yeah, we've still got a couple of questions in here about masks. So if we could maybe just have someone talk about what we expect that to look like this summer.
Jordan or Jeff, either one of you want to take that?
Yeah, so right now, the guidance that we're seeing is that when 6 feet of distance cannot be maintained, that masks will be worn. And that is how we are proceeding until we receive different guidance from either Washington State Department of Health or any of the other kind of organizing bodies, American Camping Association, or any other kind of guidance. And so that does feel like that can be kind of a barrier to being outside, but it's our priority to keep everyone safe. And while that is the guidance that we're receiving, that'll be what we're requiring on trip. I know that that does not include eating and drinking, and then also while sleeping, but at all other times, masks are required to be worn. Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
That was great. I think that covers it. I mean, I know there was an update from the CDC this week. We're still waiting for that to kind of trickle down and see what the impact will be. But I will just kind of share that on all of our trips, there will be unvaccinated participants. So we know that this will not be a summer in which every young person is fully vaccinated. And we anticipate that there will certainly be mask wearing involved. And we look forward to hearing from public health exactly what that guidance will be as we move closer to summer with some time past this new announcement on Thursday.
Thank you, Jeff. And as a parent, I just want to say that I so appreciate the conservative risk management tolerance or risk tolerance for this program. As we've all said, that the safety and health of our families is of the utmost importance to us. So thank you. Any other questions, Chris?
Yeah, just kind of a general equipment question. What is the appropriate footwear for our trips?
Catherine, you want to handle that one, please?
Sure, yeah. So most of the time you will be wearing closed-toed shoes. So this is either on a rock climbing trip or on a backpacking trip. For backpacking, we really recommend folks get shoes that have hiking boots with an ankle support. And if you have a pair of hiking boots, especially if they're a bit newer, I encourage you to wear them around your neighborhood, your house, as much as possible to break them in. This is the best tactic to avoid getting blisters while out there. So you want to make sure to break in those shoes. If you're on a climbing trip, going to and from the climb site, yeah, hiking shoes also work great for that situation. When you're in camp, or so that means just at your campsite at night, we like to have a second pair of shoes that we change into. Those are called camp shoes. And those are also closed-toed, but a little bit lighter. So I always just bring an old pair of running shoes, just something to change into that are not my possibly wet or possibly muddy hiking boots. It feels really nice to air out your feet at the end of the day and put on something a little bit more comfortable. We don't allow participants to wear sandals in camp that are just like chacos or flip-flops, anything like that that have open toes. If you're coming in during kind of a hot time, you expect maybe to go swimming, you can bring also a lightweight pair of water shoes to wear in and out of the water. Generally, there's shoes on at all times. So there's no times will you be walking around barefoot in your campsite. This is to avoid you getting injured. Your feet are your main form of transportation when you're out there. So you want to make sure to keep them safe at all times. Obviously, we're not going to be wearing them in the tent at night. That's when you can really relax. Or some instructors will have some downtime, when you get to your campsite at the end of the day, maybe 3 or 4 p.m. And if you're just sitting still, it's time to take off your boots and your socks and let your feet air out for a little bit and without walking around. That's another great time for that. Yeah, generally that's footwear. For rock climbing trips, you'll also be given a separate pair of climbing shoes that you wear while you're on the rock wall as well.
So we will provide any technical gear.
Yes,
for
that's correct.
What if people have their own harness and shoes and helmet? Can they bring that?
Yes, definitely. You can bring your own helmet and harness and climbing shoes if you're going on a climbing trip. That's great, and your instructors will just check them before we leave the Cascade People's Center in the morning as well. But again, you do not need to go out and buy your own special pair of shoes and special harness before the trip. If you already have it, great. If you want to invest in your own, great, but know that we do automatically provide them for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And then I just like a clarification. Tevas and Chacos aren't allowed as camp shoes, or they can bring those for in camp?
I would recommend bringing a pair of lightweight running shoes or other kind of closed-toed shoes for in camp.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, we've got some questions around swimming. So for that piece, someone asked if we have to be a really good swimmer, and then also, what do you wear when you go swimming? Do we need to bring bathing suits? How does that work?
Mm-hmm. Jeff, can you talk about this? I see this as risk management, and just, are they going to be swimming in Ross Lake? Do they have to be good swimmers, or just what does that look like? And what do they need to bring for that?
Great. All good questions. So in order for a trip to be allowed to go swimming, there needs to be a certified lifeguard as one of our instructors. Some of our folks have that certification, others don't. And the strong majority of trips will be in a location where they can go in the water, but they can dip, which basically means that they can go into the water up to their waist, and they can dunk down and kind of rinse themselves off, as Cameron and Catherine were talking about, in lieu of showering. And they're certainly welcome to dunk their heads, but they're not going to go any deeper than their waist. Both of our instructors will either be on site right there, or one on the beach, one in the water as well. So I think the short answer to that is most of our groups aren't in an area where they can go swimming. And even if that's the case, we're mostly going to focus on dipping in the water, because we won't have a lifeguard on every single trip. To the point about what they're going to wear, we don't have participants or staff bring their own bathing suits. In general, it's extra weight, and it may often not be needed for the duration of the trip. So often what will happen is folks will go swimming in a sports bra, underwear, shorts, etc. Whatever is going to be synthetic and will dry, and something that we want to make sure that they have a change of clothes in as well. But I think that's kind of the quick overview, but if there's other folks who want to chime in on that, please do so.
Thanks, Jeff.
I do have one thing to add to that. The one exception to that is there are opportunities for swimming on the Sea to Summit climbing trip. So I would, and since it's front country and we don't need to backpack with them, you can bring a swimsuit and a towel on, and water shoes as well, to the Sea to Summit rock climbing trips that go to Mount Erie.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to emphasize again that go to the parent corner of our website and look at the handbook and follow the packing list. The packing lists are specific for the trips, and follow those closely. Thank you. Any other questions, Chris?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions about books. So one question is, can we bring books or other forms of non-visual entertainment, like a book or puzzle? And then also a question of how many books can we bring so they're not too heavy?
Jordan, you want to handle that one?
Absolutely. So there's a lot that happens on a bold or a gold course. There might not be a lot of opportunity to actually have a lot of time to read. And so we do say that a participant can bring a book or a journal or something they write in. One of the things that I bring with me is like a little travel watercolor paint set. You might have a deck of cards, but all of that's weight. All of that's things that we need to carry. And I also know that when I go backpacking, I like to make sure that my backpack is light as possible. And so I don't usually bring a lot of extra items like that. There will be a group journal that is kept that each person will have an opportunity to contribute to, but bringing maybe a small paperback book would be acceptable, or some other kind of small trinket or game. But a lot of the time is really going to be spent kind of with the group doing other activities. And so you don't need to worry about bringing lots of books because you likely won't have lots of time to read because you'll be so busy doing other things.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Got a couple of questions specifically about the fishing trips. So do they need to bring their own fishing gear? And also, will they eat the fish caught on the fishing trip?
Catherine, you want to handle this one, please?
Sure, yes. So if you do have your own rod and reel that's a backpacking style, you can bring it with you and go over it with your instructors that morning to see if it would be a good thing to bring with you. Again, if it's something that's precious to you, I would encourage you to leave it behind. We do have our own rods and reels that we bring and lures as well. We want to make sure that your stuff doesn't get broken or lost or, whatever on a backpacking trip. In terms of whether or not you eat the fish, a lot of the trips mainly just do catch and release. And there are some instructors who, feel really comfortable with their whole, preparing a fish. So that could possibly happen, but I would say most often you just do catch and release.
Thank you. I know in the past it has been a something that the group determined whether they wanted to catch and release or consume the fish. Thank you. Any other questions, Chris?
Yeah. Can we bring insect repellent?
Catherine, you want to handle that?
Sure, yeah. So short answer is yes, you can bring a little small insect repellent. I personally don't. The mosquitoes in the places that we go are mostly very manageable with just wearing long sleeves at night, or with rain pants or a rain jacket. As Jordan was mentioning, everything that we bring is just more weight. Your instructors can bring one large insect repellent for the group to share as well. But kind of with all of this, just remember each thing that we're bringing, especially things that we can call smellies, are just one more thing to manage you're carrying every day and putting in a bear hang or a bear can each night. And so it's something that we could bring one big one to share, but you don't need to each. If it's something if you're like, I react really badly to bug bites, I get all of this stuff, I need this special insect repellent, then yes, bring it for sure. But if you're kind of like, should I, shouldn't I, then that might be something you can leave behind.
Can you also talk about the bug nets that we have that are?
Oh yeah, so we also have bug nets that can go over your head, your face, so you have to wear at night. And if you're someone who ahead of time that you react really strongly to bug bites, that might be something that you look into and bring your own as well. Just taking measures to protect yourself out there.
Thank you. Chris, any other questions?
Yeah, we have a question about cameras. So can we bring a disposable camera? And this might also be a good time to talk about how we manage photos.
Jordan, you're up.
We will send our groups out with a digital camera. And in fact, that's actually one of the rotating roles that might exist on a Boulder or Gold course, is who is the photojournalist that day, who's capturing images from camp and on their trip. So we will send a camera out. I would say I would discourage you from bringing a personal camera. It is one of those things that is the most easy to break in the backcountry. So let's worry about breaking our stuff. That's just kind of something that we factor into running our trips. And at the end of the week, what we'll do is our instructors will upload all of the photos that are taken on their course to SmugMug. SmugMug is the photo hosting site that we use. Each trip will end up with its own folder of photos, and you will receive information on how to access photos from the trip of your participant, so you can see pictures from there. But yeah, leave cameras at home. That's something that we will do, and upload photos at the end of the course. Because our trips are operating remotely, we don't have the ability to post photos daily. We will have to wait until the trip comes back, and usually the day after. So if a trip gets back on Sunday, you can start looking out for those photos on a Monday to give us some time to get those things uploaded. But it is something that we will do, and we will provide a camera to make it happen.
Yeah. And at the end of the trip, the closing circle will provide you with the link, the information to be able to access those photos. And Chris, I see that we have published the website for our participants. So there's a link, you can go there so you can access all the valuable information that's there. Do we have other questions, Chris?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in about bedtime. So when do you go to bed? And it might also be a good thing to talk about when you wake up.
Okay. Gordon, you're up.
Yeah, so this will vary day to day. I would say the great thing about spending all of our time outside is that we will really be in touch with kind of the sunrise and sunset, waking up when the sun comes up and kind of heading towards bed with the sun cones down. So without kind of making too many promises about what a typical day looks like, most days will kind of conclude around 9:30 or 10 o'clock, I would imagine. And depending on how far our trip needs to go or what the mileage is, might wake up between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. Where this might be different is on our Olympic coast trips. Our coastal backpacking trips are subject to the changing tides. And it's possible that a group might need to get up earlier in order to get around a headland that can only be crossed at a certain tide window. So that might mean waking up as early as 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning to get on trail and hiking a little bit of time with headlamps on. But generally, we want to make sure that everyone's getting enough sleep, enough rest to make sure that they're operating in a way that is sustainable. And if there is an anticipated long day or early morning wake up, our instructors will typically kind of substitute some additional downtime or an earlier bedtime to make sure that everyone is getting the sleep and the rest that they need. Any other thoughts on that from anyone?
Yeah, thank you. Well, Cameron, you were out there on the coast. Did you ever have a time where you had to get up super early and hike with headlamps, and what that was like? Sounds pretty cool to me.
I didn't do a trip on the coast, but I did have to get up really early when we were in the Olympics. We had to do, I think it was 13 miles to get back to the trailhead in time, and we woke up at 3 with headlamps, and it was very surreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you would not experience that anywhere else. It was very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Chris?
Yeah, we had a question about can I bring my cell phone, and then just a more general question about technology. So if someone could talk a little bit about that, that would be great.
Jeff, you want to do that one? Electronics out on the trail.
I'd love to. So this is very similar to what Jordan just said about cameras, honestly. One of our non-negotiables pieces of that is that we're going to leave those electronics things home. And that is first and foremost because things get lost and broken on our trips in the backcountry. It happens. We don't want that to happen to your valuables, cell phones included. So I would say best option is for it to stay with your caregiver, your family member who comes to opening circle, and they can bring it back at closing circle. Or again, we have lockers, and every participant will have an opportunity to lock up anything that they need to leave behind here inside our base camp for the duration of their trip. But we really want to discourage folks from bringing cell phones. There won't be service in many of the areas that you are. There won't be opportunities to charge it, and it's just a too big of a chance that something could get damaged or lost. And the same is true for e-books, e-readers, cameras, and any other, I guess smartwatches would be another example. Pretty much any other type of electronic that you can think of. We really want to leave it at home. It's extra weight, and it's just an added thing that could get lost or damaged.
Thank you. The trees don't have plugs. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions, Chris?
We've got a couple of specific questions about the Make a Scene program, where they're going and kind of what the art looks like on that trip. So if someone could maybe just let us know which park that trip is going to be in, and then a little bit about what the art on that trip looks like.
Okay, Jordan, you take this one, please.
Yeah, our Make a Scene course is one of our courses that will go to North Cascades National Park, and they'll be going along Ross Lake. And we have a whole bunch of different types of art supplies that we'll send out. It could be watercolors, it could be other kind of paint sets, it could be some kind of crafts like bracelets or jewelry or some other kinds of things. Our instructors who are working that course as a part of their prep day will select a couple of different craft projects that trip will do as a part of their experience and bring all of the things required to do those activities for the trip.
Yeah. Other questions?
I do also see someone wants to know where I am right now, and I am in a state park out on Ocean Shores, and at Chancellor Murr State Park. I was camping this weekend, and this is where I am.
Thank you. Other questions?
We've got a question about, is there a dress code on the trip?
Is there a dress code? Catherine or Jordan?
A dress code, I would not call it a dress code per se, but as we build up our packing list, there are certain clothes that are more functional in the backcountry than others. That would mean we try to avoid wearing cotton layers. Cotton layers hold on a lot of moisture, take a long time to dry, and can make people feel very, very cold. So one of the things we'll encourage folks is to have synthetic or wool layers. Those dry quickly and insulate if they get wet. We've talked a little bit about the type of footwear that we wear, so really prioritizing closed-toed shoes, hiking boots while we're backpacking and carrying heavy things, and then quick drying things for swimming. We do also ask folks that if for the clothing that they send, to just make sure that it's appropriate to our activities. So we try to avoid kind of any references to drugs or alcohol or anything else that might be considered inappropriate for what use around other things. But as far as a dress code, really it's just the idea of wearing functional clothes that are going to keep us safe and comfortable in the backcountry.
Thank you. So to expand on that, are people required to have a t-shirt on at all times? Can people walk around in just their sports bra or no shirt at all? Is that allowed? Maybe that is something that they're getting at as well.
Yeah, so I mean, on any given trip, like I know that sun's protection is something that is really important to me in the backcountry. So I want to make sure that I'm wearing layers whenever possible, just to kind of prevent kind of sunburning or some other things from happening. For courses that are maybe dipping or enjoying the water, as we kind of talked about, kind of appropriate swimwear, it might be quick drying shorts and sports bras. But typically just around the campsite or on trail, wearing t-shirts, wearing layers, just to make sure that we're really keeping ourselves sun safe.
Thank you. And we want you to be comfortable. So where appropriate, follow the packing list and think about what you're doing and wear clothing that's appropriate for the activity. And remember, I'm going to say again, we have an extensive library of clothing. We have an amazing relationship with Outdoor Research, and they provide us with the appropriate, very good quality outdoor gear. Do we have other questions, Chris?
Yeah, we have a question about how do I contact my parents while we're out to check in and let them know where we are? So maybe we can talk a little bit about our communication with groups and what parents can expect from around that.
Catherine, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, so you won't be contacting your parents while you're out in the field. We have emergency phones, as Jeff was talking about earlier, called satellite phones that our instructors will carry, and they use those to check in with our base to make sure everything is okay. They update us on how the trip is going and everything like that. You won't have cell phones or electronics with you, and these satellite phones are for emergencies only. So if your parents somehow need to get a hold of you during the trip, they can call our base, which that number is on all of our paperwork, and we will relay the information for you. But generally you won't be checking in with your parents each day, and this is a leadership opportunity, a growing experience for you. It might be a little bit different than how you have what you do in your everyday life, but it's really an opportunity for you to grow.
And thank you, Catherine, as part of our risk management plan, we have a 24-hour on-call phone, and we ask that that line is kept. Just don't call it to say how are they doing. If there is an emergency in the city and you need to get your young people back to you, then you would use that. It's an emergency only line that we have to keep open. If you just want to call or email me and say, Robin, how are they doing as a parent or caregiver, that's why I'm here. I will hold your hand through it, and everything will be fine. There are check-ins. Jeff, if you could talk about that, how the relationship, the communication relationship between the course director and the people in the field, and how do we know where they are when they're supposed to be? Well, how do we know that?
Yeah, so every one of our trips has a predetermined schedule and itinerary, as Jordan referenced. And then there's a course information sheet that tells us how many miles they're going to hike, or if they're going to hike, and what campsite they are intended to be at. So that schedule is what the instructors have, and every group is aiming to get, and what we're tracking as well. Then on top of that schedule, there is predetermined check-in calls. So for a 1 week trip, there's usually 3 check-in calls. For a multi-week trip, it might be 5 to 6. And then obviously the satellite phone is available for instructors to call us additionally as needed if they've got questions, if there's an emergency, etc. And I will also add that in general, they are going to call us if it looks like something is changing with their itinerary. So maybe there was an issue with the tides and they weren't able to get up as early or stay up as late as they needed to get around. And they will call us to notify us of a change in their itinerary, and then we will work with the land managers, so the Park Service, the National Forest Service, state parks, etc., to make sure that that's appropriate and that they can change where their campsites are. And then we update all of our paperwork so we know exactly where they are and what that's going to do for the rest of their trip. Does that cover what you're looking for, Robin? You want me to keep going?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. People know where we are, the appropriate people. We have a very close relationship with the land managers, the park rangers, as everyone has said. Chris, I think we have time for maybe one more question. You're on mute.
All right. Yeah, we just had a question come in that's a little bit along the same lines of just how we handle emergencies. What happens if someone breaks a bone or can't walk out? Kind of what procedures do we have in place there?
Jordan and Catherine, or any one of you well versed in answering that question.
Yeah, I think that's That's a really, really important question, and I think something that's important to understand. I mean, traveling in the backcountry is not without risk, and that's why all of our instructors are trained to handle emergencies both in the field. So I mentioned kind of when I was talking about our instructors, our wilderness first aid and wilderness first responder trainings. And both of these trainings are geared to respond to exactly this sort of incident. Wilderness first aid, 16 hours of medical training, wilderness first responder, 80 hours of medical training. Our instructors will have these certifications, and if something in the backcountry happens, if someone gets injured, they have the tools to begin to address what has happened. And this is also where our land managers come into play. Because we have itineraries, because we have reservations, because we have satellite phones, if an emergency in the backcountry occurs, we'll utilize that sat phone and we will gather the resources necessary to respond to an emergency that happens. If someone were to break a bone, it would likely mean coordinating with the park, perhaps a search and rescue entity, to safely get to that participant and safely get them out so that they can receive medical attention. For things that are less serious than that, again, that satellite phone can be used to call our course directors and our on-call phone to receive additional guidance for how to proceed. And we also have relationships with an on-call medical care provider to get more information about how we might treat a participant or someone who's feeling ill or injured in the backcountry. All of our courses carry what we call a course info sheet. On that course info sheet are also contact information for local emergency services, and then also instructions on where to find the nearest urgent care or hospital should a group need to evacuate a participant, get them to a place that can handle whatever it is that is going on. But that, I mean, one of the things that we take really seriously is that risk management, is keeping people safe. And so we firmly believe that prevention is better than cure. And so all of our instructors are trained in risk management and are going to make sure that when traveling safely, we're minimizing the likelihood that an injury like that can occur, so that it's not a problem that we need to take care of it in the field, and that all of our participants come back hopefully stronger than when they left. Anyone want to add anything to
that? Thank you. So maybe, Jeff, you could talk about the activation of the risk management plan and just what that looks like.
Yeah, so incidents can and do occur. I would say it's rare that we see a broken bone, but occasionally sprained ankles and other things do happen that require a participant, or in very rare instances, a staff member, to be evacuated. And what will end up happening is the instructors will use the satellite phone to call our on-call director, who, again, to reiterate what I said and Jordan said earlier, is available 24/7 from the moment the first trip leaves until the moment the last trip returns for the whole summer. At that point, what they're going to do is they're going to support those instructors with ensuring they have as much information as possible, and then they put together a plan. From there, they're going to call Jordan, Catherine, myself, Robin. We're going to notify the leadership of Camping and Outdoor Leadership and the YMCA of Greater Seattle. And then we're going to set up a command center here at our base camp to ensure that we're in a position to do the coordinating from this place to ensure that those participants and those staff have exactly what they need. Most often what that involves is coordinating with the Park Service or the land managers. They're the ones who are closer and have the resources most often to facilitate an evacuation. So an example would be coordinating along Ross Lake in the North Cascade National Park to evacuate someone by a boat. Or out in Olympic, they have access to some Forest Service roads that may allow them to actually get a vehicle to the coast in the event of emergency and pull someone out. So our team here is going to coordinate with all those entities and ensure that that young person or that staff member ends up exactly where they need to be. And then we're also going to coordinate transportation and all the other pieces there, as well as handle notification for families and caregivers, because that's super important to us. Is we're going to keep you in the loop. So as soon as we've got that information, we can share that with you and involve you in that process and ensure that we're connecting all those dots so that everyone has a safe and successful experience, even in the event of an evacuation.
Thank you. And that also goes for any behavioral incident that could happen. The process will look quite similar. Well, I think we're getting close to time. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So here is our contact information, campinfo@seattleymca.org. With any questions, additional questions that you have, please, that weren't answered today, please email us that. And this time of year, email works best for me. And if it's my email, it's rchilds@seattleymca.org. And if I can't answer the question in an email, I will give you a call. And if I don't have the answer, I have access to all. I will get it for you. So I want to thank you for joining us. The next slide. And we can't wait to see you this summer. Again, we're very happy that we're able to get outside and enjoy and grow. So thank you.
Another sign that I'm on your side. Another rift between the faults to feed the divide. Well, I think I'm like the others, but I'm feeling all these pressures. Am I so naive to think I gotta care? I've been drowning dreams to kill you. You've been drowning me to thrill you. Oh, I must believe there's better ways to care. Define your love and leave your rest to air. So when there's light, you gotta keep it light.